So let's talk about In a Violent Nature.
Sure.
If you don't mind, I'll do the synopsis for this, right?
Sure, no problem.
So all right. So my exposure to this show came in the form of a review courtesy of RogerEbert.com, right? I didn't
Right,
even
okay.
know this movie existed, right? Reason being is because, I don't have Shudder. I don't.
Okay.
I'm not subscribed to that service. I mean, yes, just concept wise, I mean, that streaming service makes a lot of sense, right? It's just all about horror. You get new horror, old horror, indie horror, that kind of stuff, right? But I'm not like, it's not something I will go out of my way to subscribe to compared to like a Max or Netflix or Hulu or something like that, right? So I didn't even know about this movie until I saw that review, and I think if I'm not mistaken, that got like a 3.5 out of 4 stars, right? So yeah, that reviewer, that critic, like loved it, right? So,
Right.
but usually when I see reviews of that nature, I'm like, all right, well, I need to see it for myself, right? But then like when I like just glance at what the concept was, so like, oh, okay, this could be really interesting. All right. So yeah, it finally came out digitally, so we both checked it out, right? And what it's about, right? So it's a Canadian film, right? But what it really does, it's all right. So basically, it draws inspiration from both.
How I describe it? It's a visually inverted Friday the 13th.
Exactly, right, exactly. So it's taken from the classic slasher films of the late 70s and 80s, right? So yes, you mentioned Friday the 13th. So the killer, which you'll get into, is pretty much a mismatch between a combination, if you will, between Michael Myers and Jason Voorhees, right?
Right.
It's this bully character with a mask on who just sort of walks around, doesn't say anything, finds people, and then finds really creative ways to like kill them, like disembowel them or decapitate them or whatever, right?
Right.
But what this show does, right, it kind of tries to demystify an already mystical character, right? Because if it's one thing that especially like when franchises of when slasher franchises grow and develop, right, with more movies and whatnot, they start to tell you, or you slowly begin to realize that this killer is far from human. I mean, yes, it's a human person doing the killings, but you realize that there's always some kind of force guiding them to do the things that they do, and usually it's something demonic or satanic or whatever it is, right? So they kind of play on that, right? But what they do, they kind of leave certain things out, so it's kind of up to you to sort of figure out, oh, this is why he moves the way how he moves, right? So to the show's credit, they actually kind of give like a little skeletal backstory as to who this person is, how the person died, and it's always built around revenge. So yes, somebody, this person's relative got killed, so this person rises from the grave to exact the revenge, right? But it's built around this particular item. In this case, it's a pendant. So if this pendant is moved around or put in a particular place, or somebody grabs it, this character rises and does this thing, right? They even show, because one thing I noticed from both the poster and and just the production stills for it, though, is the costume he has on, particularly this old firefighter's mask, right? Yeah, they actually explain where he got the mask from, and where he gets basically these metal hooks from with a chain on it. So that's his primary weapon, and secondary weapon is a machete, because it's Friday 13 shit, right? So yeah, you have to have a machete, right? So how all this is set, right? It's set in this particular forest in Canada, and we just basically follow this killer, right? And he is just basically walking around. Well, actually, his name is Johnny, right? Well, when he was alive, his name was Johnny, right? But he's just this unknown killer now, right? And yeah, he just sort of walks around and runs into individuals who kind of have something to do, either have the pendant with them, or they have something to do with his original death, right? And we're just following him as he just goes about killing people. And that's pretty much the gist of the show, right? But before we get to your thoughts, Ricardo, what I will say is that it does a clever enough subversion of the slasher genre and its tropes, right? I could tell that the people behind the scene who made this clearly know a thing or two about slasher films, right? But what I pick up though in particular, this is what I really admire about the show too. It feels like it's drawing a lot from E.T. slasher films, right? What I mean is like the knockoff, if you will, knockoff films that came out, more low budget films, usually made in and some of them were even made in Canada, right? Where yes, it's not Friday 13th, it's not Halloween, but it is about a slasher. But the whole gist of it is we have to kind of top what those films did. So it's all about the gore. It's all about the practical effects. It's all about those things. So we always have to make each death, as much deaths as possible, as gratuitously bloody and gory and over the top. That's the gist of it, right? And we could get away with it selling it on VHS because, if we send it to the MPA, they will cut the shit out of it, right? So it's like that, right? And another great thing I'll give credit for to this, right? This looks like the type of show that eventually, like a home media company, like say a Vinegar Syndrome, will distribute. Because they put out a lot of those straight to VHS slasher films anyway, right? Them and Severin and Arrow films. They love like those indie slasher films, right? That they love that shit, right? I could tell that this movie is drawing a lot from that, but it's also drawing from the classic slasher films, which I'll get into in my review later on, right? But there's a huge but. But I'll stop there. But yeah, Ricardo, I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on this show, especially with you not being a fan, not being the biggest fan of horror, and it's something that this show kind of toys with, and I was like, I know if you saw this, Ricardo, you'd be like, why would you do this? Yeah, the whole idea of characters doing dumb shit because, they eventually had to get killed now, So it's that. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. That's the main problem I had with this. They decide to like either by intention or by homage or whatever it is, they decide to do that. Characters being dumb or characters being incompetent or whatever it is. Yeah, there's a movie that I'm very sympathetic towards it. I get where it's coming from. I think I get the space and clearly it's like a labor of love from the creators to make something like this and why they make it and what they do in terms of its referencing in the past. But I just couldn't get into it. And there's actually a simple reason. It's too slow. That's the main problem.
Agreed.
Like
Agreed.
It's designed. It's clearly designed to be all right. Well, it's a visual, as I say, I call it the visual inversion, but basically it's like, all right, just what happens when you watch it from the side of the storyline, because the story is playing itself out like a typical one of these Friday the 13th or whatever it is, but everything is just from the other people's perspective. So the heroes and the protagonists go away. Well, we say protagonists, but heroes, right? They go away and try to do something or put themselves in a situation to set a trap, and then they would have a conversation. But we almost never see it from their perspective, right?
Yes.
It's like, I don't know, Thanos and the Avengers, right? Remember in the Avengers Infinity War, it was almost always the entirely the Thanos show, and then we get a couple of scenes with the Avengers, and then it's that, right? And so they tell that story, but the problem is that because everything's so, it's so to me just slow. Like it's straight up, the man just walk in, and he will take somebody and drag their body, and so if you think that's a thing to watch or think that's part of the horror, just seeing the slow gratuitousness of it, then I suppose fine, it might work for you. There's this one scene, the kills are good, like it's good, really gory, violent kills. But that is one scene that was just going on, like involving I forget what the device is, but it's basically the wood splitter. That's all you need to do.
Yeah, that went on for way too long though. I felt like this payoff wise was just okay, that's it, and really.
It's just pure gore, and it relies on the gore stuff. Like it's just splashy thing, and it's clearly. They clearly kind of went to, again, this is by intention or by homage or whatever it is. Just I find this stuff it looking a little on the cheap end, right? In terms of like how characters operate or how things move. But everything is just from the perspective of the killer, and I wasn't a fan of that because it's one of those things that you think is interesting, but really not that interesting. Like there's a reason why you don't see it from the perspective of a killer like this unless they're doing something interesting. And it's just him just walking around. Like if he just walks around and he walking silently, you'll catch up with people. That makes sense for the most part. Except when it don't make any sense. Like characters don't turn around while Eddie's spatial awareness, which is get a little ridiculous. Like that, like the second kill. That's the girl on the doing the yoga. Kind of rubbish.
Yeah, although I'll talk about that in a bit, right? But the setup was like, what,
Yeah.
why, how?
Yeah. And then the worst one comes later, but like it's just that. But like they have like little moments where you see him, like the part where the two guys try to escape and they one guy injured his leg and he threw the axe. Now
that was actually a superb sequence though, and the way how that scene ends.
Right.
Even though I was thinking about the budget of this movie too, I was like, shit, how they do that though? 'Cause it was all in camera. I was like, holy shit.
Right. But it looked good. I like how they cut that together. But again, if it was from the perspectives of the kids, that would have been cool. Just the axe completely coming out of nowhere and catching the guy, right? Stuff like that, right? And so it's one of these choices. I get why it's made. It's one of these things that I saw 15 years ago, and I love this and be like, wait, but that was real memorable. That's a great subversion. But we done past subversion. Like it's one of these things I'm not particularly impressed by anymore. And now doing this, it just come across like a gimmick. And I couldn't get into it. Now, all of that would have been fine if it wasn't so slow. See, if this was paying off and playing itself off in a workable pace, that would be fine. But the pacing is way too slow for me to get into this. And I just couldn't get into it because of that. I watch it, but I was like shockingly patient. And then what's worse is like, how I know it was bad is like, wait, this is only 90 minutes? What the hell? Like
I know, right? Yeah.
And it's like, wow, this could have been just like an episode of like if they cut the 30 minutes and they shave off all of this nonsense. They would have been fine. Like this could have been like an episode of like they want to bring out Red Mirror, something like that, right? Where it's just an hour. It was just an hour and they tell the same story. I might enjoy it more, maybe. But boy, they could have cut better, Jared, and just trim this off. You know, it reminds me of this Star Trek the motion picture, right?
Oh wow.
Solid Star Trek film, too much fat. They need to shave off and edit all of that bullshit out it. That's about it. I just it's a shame because I get why it's done the way it is. I get it, but it just too long. Like it just long. These long tapes. I don't appreciate that shit at all. Like the second. No, sorry, I said the second kill. The third kill. This is where the girl get drowned. I just watching water, and then body come up, and then come back down, and it's like I get it, maybe. But I don't know.
I get it too, you know, and I know the movie and I'll talk about that in my review. I know the movie that they're referencing here, you know, but still, it's like,
too slow.
Get to the point. Come on,
get to the point, right? It's too slow. I get where you're going for, but too slow. But that's about it. Nothing else. I know it are people out there who will probably love this movie, and I don't blame them. Like I don't think, you're necessarily off or wrong for saying why you might like this. But I just that's my problems with it, and it feeling like, well, this character is kind of like oh god, which movie that came out the other day? Skinamarink. Which movie it is with the character?
I still haven't seen that, you know.
No, it have another movie. Oh god, Violator is a movie.
Terrifier.
Thank you. Right. So this guy is like
that show also leans. Actually, that show leans a lot into that schlocky 80s gore fest. But
what Terrifier is to Freddy, this do this to Jason effectively, right? It's just a modernized Jason. You take the idea and you twist it up in a really cool way, and he's a cool villain in terms of like what he was going for. Like I wish personally, I wish they didn't show his face.
That's true. Yeah.
I don't care. It's a short shot, but
I know the show that they're referencing.
Right. I wish they didn't show his face. But whatever, it's fine. I like what they did with it. They explain enough from they tell the story. You hear the story from his perspective, and again, because of how it's told invertedly from his perspective, like so, usually the characters will be explaining the plot, and then all of a sudden the bad guy will come up on them. Right. Yeah. But if you see it from his perspective, that's what it will look like. I get what you're going for. I still don't care for it, to be honest. Like because of how it's so slow the whole thing is, and telling the story, and 10 years ago, and the story itself is interesting, fine enough stuff. That's fine. But yeah, the execution, the idea is a cool idea. It's one of those things that I would have loved probably 10 to 15 years ago, but I don't know. I think I passed it. Maybe I'm too old for this or too young for this. I'm not sure. But it not fitting the conceit I wish it could be. And I just think the execution wasn't great, to be honest. But that's about it.
Yeah, well, I agree with you for the most part, right? So while I was watching this, right? Okay, so I'll confess, I've never seen this movie before, and the reason might seem kind of silly, but when I explain it, you'll understand, right? So I've never seen the house that Jack built, right?
Okay,
it's from
right.
Lars von Trier.
Right.
Reason why I haven't seen it is because of Lars von Trier.
Right.
He is a filmmaker that, no lie on God, scares me, Drew.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
his
very violent.
very like nihilistic view of the world, like that gets under my skin, Dread. And
Right.
like, listen, I watched Nymphomaniac, right? Parts 1 and 2. I saw that, right? Yeah.
Right.
But I have avoided Antichrist. I have avoided and avoided The House that Jack Built. I know people will praise those two films to high heaven, right? Especially Antichrist. I know that should get a lot of praise, right? But I hear about the stuff that was in that show. I was like, nah, fuck that. No thank you. I don't care if Willem Dafoe in it. No, I don't want to see
understandable.
that. No thank you, right?
Right, no problem.
But when it comes to The House that Jack Built, right? I always remember the premise of it, which was where Matt Dillon was just pretty much playing the serial killer, and it was over like this like decade-long period, and it's just about him just killing people now. But the whole thing is just you exploring the mindset of this killer, and like of course the deaths are just really, really graphic, and is Lars, right? So Lars is just all about pushing envelopes. That man just don't give a fuck, right? So yeah, that's why his stuff I just tend to just stay clear of, because I don't know, this guy's worldview is just too warped for me, right? But I mean, like, if you learn a lot about the man, you'll understand why. But it's just like, nah, but like, you had to take all that darkness and put it in that movie. Like, you just don't, like, you just not happy, right? Like, what is this, right? But yeah, but point is, when I was watching this movie here, I was thinking that Lars would have been the perfect person to make a movie like this, right?
Right.
Because I know what the show is trying to do. So yes, it is about. All right. So in a nutshell, right? It's more or less how to describe it. Like take your average slasher film, right? This film feels like it takes all the scenes that were cut out and makes a narrative out of it, right? So yes, in a slasher film, you usually don't see the killer unless the director wants you to see him, right? But this one is like, okay, no, we're going to follow the slasher. We're going to see the killer run into these characters instead of just doing it by surprise. Ever so often, you will do a little surprise thing, right? But it's really about you following the character, right? And it kind of does it almost in a nature documentary kind of style. Like another show I was thinking about too was Man Bites Dog from the French film from 1992.
I never watched that. I never saw that.
Oh. That actually, yes, even though that show is fucked up too, what saves it is the dark humor. Like, it's very, 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 very pitch black humor, right? What it's about, in a nutshell, is French film, black and white, about these two filmmakers, these documentarians, following a serial killer, and the serial killer like real nonchalant, like, yeah, when I'm in a mood, I just go and kill a guy or kill a woman, and I usually like to do it this way, and that's the sell. The sell is just the dark humor, right? But I would watch that over The House That Jack Built any day, right? But anyway, so I thought like it kind of going for that too now. So the point again now with all these references is that I know that within the whole serial killer genre spectrum that they're playing with, right? What they really want to show is, and it's in the title, how could a character just walk around and kill somebody or kill people just blindly, just mercilessly, without any remorse and without any emotion? That's really what it is, right? So the show is trying to get you to feel that kind of way, like, my God, like, this is so fucked up. This is so terrifying, man. And man, you know what I mean? And that's why I brought up, The House That Jack Built and all these things. The problem is with those two shows, right? House That Jack Built and Man Bites Dog, is a human being, is someone with a conscience, is someone who knows what he is doing. This one is, again, and that's the problem, because you want to play with tropes. It's a resurrected corpse. It's a demonized corpse that's running. Yeah, it's a zombie pretty much, right? So yeah, you had to take humanity out of it. So when he's killing people, and yes, it is gratuitous when he kills people, it is still within the realm of fiction, if that makes sense to you. You know what I mean? And that's what I was going back with what I said before with these franchises. Yeah, like at first you take it, it's just a guy who just who just go nuts and start killing people, right? That was the Michael Myers character in Halloween, right? But then eventually you realize, well, wait there, but I killed this man. I bust 4 shots in him. Why you getting a 4? I realized, no, it's this demonic force. So it's weird bullshit. That's what it is, right? So when you add that into a film like this, it's just like, well, yeah, you're just watching what is essentially a mystical character, and it's trying to demystify him and make him feel like he is in this real world. But no, actually, what you're seeing here is legit like an old school slasher film, right? It's just the way how it's shot and the way how it's framed and whatnot. It makes you believe that, oh, what you're seeing is real. But no, it's a fictional killer who is running around doing this thing. Like it's a zombie. So you have to kind of, you have to suspend your disbelief now. That's the problem with the show, So on the one hand, it wants to pay tribute to that, which is fine, but it also wants to kind of make it feel real with the style and how it's filmed. But it's like, but is a zombie. That's really what it is, right?
Right.
Anyway. The kills for the most part, there's one involving that same one that you mentioned before, who's doing yoga. That will go down as one of the most fucked up deaths I've seen in a long while, but that is on some Terrifier type shit though, where it's on some Terrifier type shit where you think, the death just, it just stops with the stab now. It's like, no, he just relishing in it though, and it just ends with, boy, when I see that, I was like, God damn.
Yeah, that was funny.
Like, it's almost like they was holding back the budget. Like, okay, we had to make this that look real dread.
Yeah.
It's almost like everybody went into that scene. But
I think my issue with it is the problem. Again, the character, she just freeze dead, and he walk up onto she and like, well, again, I have to accept this, aspect of this aspect of it. She just freeze on the cliff. She didn't fight. She didn't try to dodge him or run around or not like that. But this dude don't move other than just walking,
Yes.
He don't run. I never see him run. I never see nothing. So like, to be just like, maybe we know you're fit. You're doing yoga. Like use them legs now. I don't know. I have a problem with it. Because the thing is earlier.
The same thing too. Yeah.
Yeah, because earlier they had a scenario where the guy did run and then he fall victim to his own. Well, he was in the conversation. He was setting traps, and when the traps catch him now. Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Like that, I like how that play out, right? With that situation. That first kill is good. Like I like that because again, the reason why he get catch is because of his own bad behavior, though, right? He was remember he was talking to the police officer earlier or something like that.
Yes.
That's my problem with it now. But yeah. There's another sequence later that's even worse than this, but it's stuff like that. Them kind of things also take me out. It's like, oh god, you're still doing this. I get you're doing it by homage or is it by intention? I'm not sure, but it's still dumb. Sorry.
Well, yeah, I found myself in the same boat as you because of how this show is framing itself to be this stylized, this, sort of like sort of realish. I don't want to say hyper stylized, but this sort of realish take on the slasher genre. Yeah, characters like victims will just kind of do dumb shit. So yeah, like you say, that girl just like freeze like a deer in headlights before she even gets stabbed. You're like, I know you're near a cliff, but like she screams. No, well, all right. So slight spoiler. She sees the person walking up to her. She screams, and she just stops. She doesn't even like try to climb down the cliff or do anything or run the other way. She just freezes and waits for this guy to stab him. And you're just thinking, okay, she gets stabbed. All right, maybe she'll try to move. Nope, she just sits, just stands there. And that's when he do the thing that, the filmmakers spend a lot of money on. And yes, while it made for a brilliant death, right, a brilliant kill, it's like you could have gotten out of that so quickly, right? And that leads me to let me just say the scream queen, the last person who survives all this, right, so to speak, right? I'm not gonna spoil what happens, but I'll say upon seeing the killer, she does something, and I understand in terms of homage, I understand what they're getting at, right? But like, okay, just slight spoiler. You're not seeing where it is you're going, but yet why you running so fast, right? Yeah, and then it just cuts to a scene in the morning, and you see what happens. Like, well, of course that would have happened. You're not even looking where you're going, duh. You know what I mean?
But that's the typical horror movie trope again. You run and you trip.
But it's like
I had accepted at this point. At that point in the film, I accepted. It's still not the stupidest part of the movie.
All right. What was the stupidest? Just remember, what was the stupidest?
In my opinion, on the counter 3. That's all I'll tell you. I find that was real fucking dumb.
Oh God, yes.
Why? Because it's like, why is standing so close to do that? to do some dumb shit like that.
I know. I
All
remember
they
that.
have to,
Yeah.
listen, they could do the exact same thing like about 5 feet away, and they would be fine. No,
Yes. Agreed.
they're
Yeah.
right by
Yeah.
the man, right
Yeah.
within thing or whatever. That was
Right.
real dumb.
So, well, but we're wrapping up here, right? So, yeah, I remember that scene. That was really, really dumb, right?
Yeah.
The finale of it, right? Not gonna spoil what happens here, right? I get the movie that they're paying tribute to, right?
Right.
And yes, the show does some clever homages to classic slasher films, right? So, I'll just call the titles, and you'll just look for them if you do decide to see them, right? So you will see a reference to Halloween. You will see Friday the 13th. You will see Texas Chainsaw Massacre, right? You'll see those things, right? And I'm watching the scene play out, right? And they're like, all right, eventually they're going to get back to what the story is about, right? Because for the majority of the show, we've just been following this killer, right? And now we get to this point where it's about the survivor, if you will, right? And there's a conversation that takes place, and I get that, this is the movie saying, oh, well, this is the point we're trying to say. This is us, it's exploring the animalistic nature of, man and all these kind of things. Like I get it. Okay, fine, right? And then the movie just kind of stops literally at a certain point, and I get what they're trying to say, it's the threat is still out there kind of thing, they want to end things on an ominous note, I get, right? But how and where they stop it off, I didn't like. I felt like the film just sort of fizzled out at that point. Like, it just had nowhere else to go. So it just set the scenario up and just say, let me just leave it there. And the whole idea is, it's a threat. It's the they make it ominous now, but it's just like, no, they just sort of ran out of steam. Unfortunately, that's how I felt at the end of it, because they just set up something so potent now, and then they just sort of throw it away because, we just had to kind of wrap things up. It's almost like they're looking at the time, it's like, all right, let me just wrap it up because we kind of waste a lot of time, right? And yeah, like you, Ricardo, there were moments where, you will literally see the killer walking. And I get what it's getting at, but like after some time, it's like, all right, just get to the point now. There's literally a post-kill scene where it's just the killer walking through a field of flowers. I get what they're trying to say, man, but it's like, and again, that's why I go back to like Lars von Trier. That like, say what I want about the guy Dread, but he's a man that know how to get into the nihilism of things. And I know this is what he was trying to get at, is the idea of how could this man, this killer, this zombie, be so merciless and, kill people with no remorse. Like, I get it, right? And just to wrap things up, right? And as far as the slasher genre goes, yes, this is a refreshing idea. This is something that, 15 years ago, I would have been like, wow, this is such a game changer, right? But because of where the genre is right now, it's like, what more can you really give us that we haven't seen before, right? And that's not to say that we haven't had, clever subversions of that over the years. I mean, look at Cabin in the Woods, right? They do that. And even, like the recent Evil Dead film, right? Evil Dead Rise, they find clever ways to take old tropes and make it work, right? I would even throw Bodies from a couple of years back, right? Which did a much clever take on the slasher genre, or actually the whodunit genre, right? Yeah, and I thought it worked, right? But this one, I understand the art, and I actually don't mind the artsiness and the experimentation involved too. But because it's within this particular genre, it's like, all right. So at the end of the day, folks, without me rambling on too much, if you're like a slasher nerd, then you will like appreciate what the show is doing, right? And if you just always wanted to see a movie from the perspective of the killer, but then again, that isn't anything new at all, but whatever, you'll appreciate it. You'll appreciate the show for what it's doing, right? And you'll appreciate the kills for the most part, the low budget approach shit, which I know it's harkening back to like indie, 80s horror films or whatnot. And, I admire the craft behind it, right? But I just felt there should have been more thought put into it, right? Because, it just becomes this sort of tired little trope. Okay, the killer walks around. There's no music throughout the entirety of the film except for the end credits. Okay, fine. But ultimately, you're not really telling me or showing me anything that I don't already know. or think about when it comes to this genre, or in particular why it works and why it doesn't work, right? Because it's not a flawless genre at all. You could pick holes at the Jason Voorhees or the Michael Myers, right? I like that the show kind of questions these things and explores it in ways too, but still within the context of the genre, it's just like, why would a character move so stupid? Why should we care about what this killer is doing? You know what I mean? It's like that, right? Unfortunately, right? So for me, rating wise, I'll give this a lighter, decent 3 out of 5. It's aight for what it is. I like the idea. I like just the concept is brilliant, right? But the execution is sort of hit or miss for me. Right? Like I was liking it at that point in time with the sort of Nietzsche documentary perspective and whatnot, but after a while that just sort of wears itself out, and this kind of gets dull and boring. And even though they sort of punctuated with these gratuitous death scenes, it's still not enough, right? But for me, though, I felt it should have just ended stronger, though. Just ended at that particular point. It was just too weak. It was just a weak way to end it, right? I know the show that they're referencing. I know the implication they're trying to suggest with the way how it ends. But it just left too much out into the open, literally, right? So for me to come out of it like, wow, you know what I mean? I really got my money's worth with that, right? So it's like that. So again, I admire the effort, but the execution could have been much better. But Ricardo, I talk long enough. You'll find a total rate on this.
5 out of 10. As I said, this is what this bear versus man. This is what they're talking about, right? In the forest, right? Who you prefer? That's the joke. The execution really bad, as you say. I just it's a shame that I don't know what I'm missing here. Somebody could probably tell me what I'm missing, but it didn't work for me. It just didn't come together as well as it could have. I get the idea. I get what you're going for. Clearly, a labor of love, but it didn't work. It didn't work in my humble opinion. So 5 out of 10.
Yeah.
The kills are okay. Somebody who kills are okay. So
and again that one scene, is that I will remember that by year's end. But I mean, Homegirl should have taken a little step to the right and run. But no, that's not what we come for. We come to see the person get killed. But like, oh gosh, man, like we in 2024, man. I mean, I don't know.